And then lastly, what I'll show you is a book that I just acquired and I'm really proud of. And we're going to debut it at the Florida show. So I encourage everybody to come look at it. This is The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, which you see commonly in the market. If you go online, there's probably 25, 50 first editions on the market that you can choose from.
Sure.
But very, very few of them are like this one. This one is in what I would call pristine condition. The spine has no darkening to it. And the spines of this dust jacket notoriously fox get dark. And this one looks like you were just at the Barnes and Noble and pulled it off the shelf. So it's a beautiful first edition, first printing of The Grapes of Wrath. We're really proud of it. We're going to feature it at the show. The price tag will be pretty heavy, but it is a very unique, rare copy of one of the great works of 20th century literature.
Good for you. Well, you've been shopping.
Congratulations.
I have to shop to keep this thing going, which is great. I love to buy books. So that's one of the great perks of being a book dealer is that you get to buy books.
That's right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another holiday kind of edition of the Rare Book Cafe, the book lovers' rendezvous, where people in the bibliosphere come to listen to and talk about books. My co-host, as usual, Leland, Ridge Books, Calhoun, Georgia. Howdy, Lee.
Hello, Ed. Glad to be here on this almost holiday week. And joining us also today is our co-host, our very own Richard Morey of Morey Rare Books, who is coming to us today from
Lady Lake, Florida.
Oh,
I like that. Co-host. We're going to start calling you Cocoa Puff.
well, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, okay.
And of course, our guest this week, Bryan Young from Grayshelf Books in Tomball, Texas. Hello, Bryan.
Hello, good to be here.
I think you've been on the show before. We're glad to have you back.
I have. I've been on a few times. I'm excited to do it.
So, Richard, you've snowbird down to Florida now. You've just get there recently. How was the trip down? And did you find any treasures on the way?
Well, I did. I kind of, after I got back from my Syracuse, Ohio trip, I jumped down to Philly, did the Philadelphia show, which was wonderful. And then I stopped in North Carolina for basically 5 days, and I did a Boy Scout show. And I bought a couple really special things that we'll save for another program. And then I landed in Florida on Sunday. And I was out there Monday morning shopping. And take a guess, Ed. I found a couple treasures. I don't know if you can read this. It's called The Dissertation or Respiration by Dr. Menzies, published in Edinburgh in 1796.
Excellent.
I haven't even had a chance to research it yet, but it's a sweet little piece. It has actually been put in a nice binding by my friend David at Griffin Books in St. Petersburg.
Very good. Very good.
The person I bought it from had David do it. And then I also bought, it's called, I believe it's pronounced The Righteous Man's Plea to True Happiness in 10 Sermons, preached by John Stoughton, Doctor in Divinity, sometimes Fellow of Emmanuel College in Cambridge, published in London, 1640.
Well, I hate to admit it, but I think that's a book I'd rather sell than read.
looks like it's in really good condition too.
Oh, yeah, the block is in nice shape. Again, David rebound this
Yeah.
for the gentleman. And then waiting in the mail for me when I got here, something I actually ordered from Florida and had it shipped to Florida. One of my personal favorites, Pollyanna.
Hmm.
And there's a wonderful little backstory to Pollyanna I'll share. Eleanor Porter, who is the original author, is from Littleton, guess where?
New Hampshire.
How'd you guess that, Ed? You must be telepathetic. But yes, in fact, and not only that, the town of Littleton has embraced Eleanor Porter. Over the main street is a metal archway that says, I think it says Glad. It doesn't say Glad Books, but it says something about glad and happiness over the main street. And right beside it is the town library with a bronze statue of Eleanor Porter on the front lawn.
Mhm.
And every June they have what they call Glad Days. And they celebrate her and her books. And did you know that there's been several movies on the Pollyanna books? Guess who the stars were in 1920? You should know this, Ed. You're old enough to know this.
I know the one from the 60s was Haley Mills.
Haley Mills, that's
Right.
exactly
I don't
right.
know who the one from the 20s was.
Oh, sure you do. The biggest woman star of her day. The biggest.
Lillian Gish?
No, Mary Pickford.
Mary Pickford.
Oh, I was gonna guess Lillian Gish as well.
But she has a wonderful New Hampshire connection. This is actually by one of the authors, Harriet Loomis Smith, which has an interesting backstory as well. She was the first Black woman teacher in Boston.
Nice.
So little sidebar there, but anyway, so Ed, I think I might have a couple other things to show another time.
Well, let's save him for another time and let's bring our guest on here. Bryan, Grayshelf Books, Tomball, Texas. Tell us a little bit about your company philosophy before we get into where you're headed soon.
Well, Ed, we're basically an online bookstore. We sell our books on 3 different platforms online. We sell them on A-Books, Biblio, and eBay. We're also on the ABAA website and the IOBA website with our inventory.
That reminds me, I got to pay my dues.
Oh yeah.
So my wife and I are partners in our business, and we work out of our house. And like I say, we're basically an online store, but we do 3 to 5 shows a year, including the one we're going to talk about here in a minute. And as far as what we sell,
I think you got a side hustle, don't you? You have a side hustle, the books.
Yeah, the books is a side hustle.
You're a veterinarian.
Yes, I am. I'm also a veterinarian. I work on racehorses, thoroughbred racehorses. So when I'm not working on thoroughbred racehorses, I'm trying to run this book business. It keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble.
Did you ever collect any like Merck manuals or anything in the veterinarian medical world? As part of your personal collection.
I have collected a few things in the veterinary world. I have Merck manuals that I actually use. Mm-hmm. So as far as collecting older, more valuable Merck manuals, I haven't done that. But I picked up a few veterinary things
once.
I'm sorry?
I picked up the first 8 editions of the Merck manual, and then it also included the first edition of the veterinarian one. And interesting, the Merck medical manuals, I think the first one was published in 1902, but the first veterinarian one wasn't published until 1951.
Really?
Yeah. Big gap in there.
Slighting us veterinarians. I don't know why. But anyway, I have collected some veterinary material, but probably more than that, I've collected more horse racing material because that's what I work on racehorses. So I do have some material in that, which we may or may not see at Florida. I haven't decided yet.
You got any tips for Belmont in the 5th?
Oh, absolutely. Take the gray horse.
Bet the gray horse.
Yeah. But we specialize in literature, science fiction, and horror. mainly modern first editions. We do go back to the 19th century sometime, and we do branch out into other genres, including what we were talking about, horse racing. And I have a particular interest in the Pacific theater of World War II. So we'll have some books of that genre. We'll have some other nonfiction items, but mainly our focus is literature, science fiction, and horror.
Excellent. Now, since there's been, it seems as though, just a random observation here, since all of the television series that have been on in the last 5 to 10 years, fantasy and role playing type of things seem to be coming into their own again.
Absolutely. Fantasy, science fiction and fantasy, particularly fantasy, has really taken off over the last, like you say, probably 5 years. I'm sure Game of Thrones had a lot to do with that, being probably one of the most popular TV shows of all time, written by the great George R. R. Martin, who, just as a side note, has his papers and personal collections at my alma mater, Texas A&M University.
Oh, go Aggies.
Yeah, gig 'em. So fantasy has become a very large part of the science fiction market,
The Diane
especially young
Gabaldon
adult
books have just
fantasy.
done so
And
well, both books and television.
absolutely, not just adult fantasy, but young adult fantasy novels have become very popular. A lot of series out there, a lot of series that are doing quite well, and I think part of that has, I think it's a Game of Thrones kind of snowball effect that started, probably 5 to 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little sidebar if I could add. I just sold the original first edition of the trilogy by Ace paperbacks.
Really?
Yep.
Nice.
Game of Thrones?
No, trilogy, Tolkien's trilogy.
Tolkien? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Are you familiar with it, Bryan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. What nice
So
set.
any Lord of the Rings, Hobbit stuff, it's very popular. It's hard to get.
Yeah.
It's gotten pretty expensive now, so we try to acquire that stuff all the time, and sometimes we can, and sometimes we can't. And usually, when we do, it sells pretty quickly, as Richard just attested to. So, Tolkien's the master, but there's a lot of really, really excellent fantasy out there right now.
Now, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to make it because I'll be out of the country, but you're going to be joining Richard and Lee in Florida for the book fair first weekend of March. Is that right, Lee?
That's correct. March 1st and 2nd. 2 days this year only, set up on Friday and show on Saturday and Sunday. And I know Richard is putting together stuff already, and so am I. And like Bryan, we like to have as much new to the market, at least for us, as we can, because we get a lot of repeat customers at the Florida show. Plus all these new, younger people that are coming in that we are trying very hard to bring along as collectors.
Absolutely.
It's a 2-day driving investment for you, Bryan, but what are you going to be bringing along with you?
So we are going to be bringing books in those genres that I talked about earlier, literature, science fiction, horror predominantly, a few things in the other genres as well. But generally in this interview, I talk about the really high point stuff that I bring. I am going to talk about a couple of those, but I wanted to talk about books across all financial levels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Of all values. So we'll have books in our booth that range from probably $50 to some very high-end books in the $20,000 range. But I wanted to show you a number of books across all ranges so that everybody that comes to the show can come to our booth and hopefully find something in their price range that they can afford and that they can take home with them.
Great.
So the first one I'm going to show you, this goes back to your fantasy talk about how popular fantasy is right now. This is a book called Iron Flame. It's written by a woman by the name of Rebecca Yarros. This is actually the second book of a trilogy that started with a book called Fourth Wing. The third book of the trilogy is coming out like I think it's this month sometime. But this series is one of those fantasy series that's gotten really, really popular lately. And these books are getting hard to find in a first edition. This book, I think we've got it valued at around $75, something like that. The first one, Fourth Wing, is probably about a $200 to $300 book in the first printing. It's a little bit more scarce, but just an example of the fantasy stuff that's really hot right now in the market. More traditional literature. This is Colson Whitehead's Underground Railroad, which won the Pulitzer Prize. Whitehead has now won the Pulitzer Prize twice. And when you win 2 Pulitzer Prizes, it puts you in company with some names that you might recognize, like Hemingway, Faulkner, people like that. So this guy is the guy that students 50 years from now are going to be reading in their high school class. And when people ask me what they should collect and what they should buy, generally the first name I bring out is Colson Whitehead. Anyway, this is a signed first edition, Underground Railroad, first printing. There's Whitehead's signature right there on
Nice,
that free paper. Just a beautiful book, and what I think is going to be a book that's going to be collectible for a long time. You guys can stop me at any time if you got any questions.
No, this is fascinating.
Speaking of Hemingway, I've got a really nice first printing of Hemingway's Moveable Feast. This is the book that kind of chronicles his stay in Paris and the things that he and his first wife Hattie were doing in Paris. Very collectible book. People love this book. If you're a Hemingway collector, you've got to have one of these on your shelf, and we'll have it in our booth.
Hopefully not for long.
Hopefully not for long. You're right. We'll get to some more valuable books. Here is a first printing of Rockwell Kent's illustrated Moby Dick. This book here is very collectible, especially if you have the original dust jacket on it. And this book obviously has that original dust jacket. It's in really nice condition.
It sure is.
Really uncommon to have that dust jacket and to have it in that kind of pristine condition. This will be in our booth. This is I think it's going to be about a $1,500 to $2,000 book in the booth.
I just bought and sold the 1937 deluxe edition in the dust jacket.
Yeah.
Didn't have it long.
Well, it's hard for us mere mortals to afford the original first printing of Moby Dick. So at least with the Rockwell Kent version, there is a chance that you could buy one. You know what I mean?
You mean you don't have your copy on the shelf? I thought we all did.
Plus, it comes with pictures.
It's funny. I'm able to bid on some really nice books at auction, and I have bid on some Moby Dicks before. Moby Dick is actually one of my personal favorite books, but I can't get up to the level that some of these collectors and dealers are paying for a first printing of Moby Dick, along with some other books, as y'all are aware.
But Moby Dick is still popular just as a book to read. My book club, we don't meet during the summer, but we compare notes on what people have read during the summer. And a couple of years ago, it was something that 2 members of the book club had chosen as a summer read, even though they had read it, in school years ago. And one of my sons, who had gotten with some friends online, and that was their summer read, was Moby Dick. This was just kind of a random sampling, of people. So it's still a very popular book, not just as a collectible, for people who've got $2,000 to spend on that particular edition. But
deserves to be called a classic.
It's such a great book, and I encourage anybody to read it. When we were forced to read it in high school, it was a really difficult book to get through, but once you pick it up for pleasure and read it, it's just one of the best books out there.
Yeah, I do have the original source material for Moby Dick, however. two volume. It's the story of the Essex, 1820. And it's actually the more significant edition, which is the second edition, because the first edition doesn't have the information about the trial where the second edition does. So if you want to add that to your collection, Bryan, I do have that.
Well, you'll
Always
have to bring
selling,
it to the
Richard.
show. I'll take
Always
a look at
selling.
it.
Well, I had to read Billy Budd in high school, so that was a little
Oh,
easier.
that's kind of brutal. All right,
A couple
next
more
one
before
is
we let you go.
The Exorcist. This is a really clean copy of The Exorcist, one of the classic books of horror fiction, as y'all are aware. The nice thing about this copy of The Exorcist is it is signed on the title page by William Peter Blatty, which makes it pretty uncommon. This is about a $1,500 to $2,000 book, signed and in almost fine condition. It's a beautiful book. And then lastly, what I'll show you is a book that I just acquired and I'm really proud of. And we're going to debut it at the Florida show. So I encourage everybody to come look at it. This is The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, which you see commonly in the market. If you go online, there's probably 25, 50 first editions on the market that you can choose from.
Sure.
But very, very few of them are like this one. This one is in what I would call pristine condition. The spine has no darkening to it, and the spines of this dust jacket notoriously fox get dark, and this one looks like you were just at the Barnes and Noble and pulled it off the shelf. So it's a beautiful first edition, first printing of The Grapes of Wrath. We're really proud of it. We're going to feature it at the show. The price tag will be pretty heavy, but it is a very unique, rare copy of one of the great works of 20th century literature.
Good for you. Well, you've been shopping.
Congratulations.
I have to shop to keep this thing going, which is great. I love to buy books. So that's one of the great perks of being a book dealer, is that you get to buy books.
That's right.
It feeds my obsession.
Well, Lee, I feel like I ignored you on this show. What's going on in your life?
That's fine. That's fine. Well, it's Christmas, and so what's been going on in my life is Dickens Village.
The Dickens Village.
And we have posted it thanks to Alan's hard work and splicing together my not particularly good videos. It is on Rare Book Cafe, and we've had 100 and something views in the last week, and it ties into what we're doing in the book world, because so many of the buildings are from Dickens novels, and then so basically that's what I've been doing. I've been selling some Christmas Christmas things. We're going to talk about that in a little while. And
that's right. We've got our end of year show coming up, and we're going to talk about Christmas and Christmas books, and
talk about some Christmas things. And people have been buying some gifts. Christmas gifts of books tend to run in the $75 to $100 range for a lot of folks. And so typically this time of year, that's what I see. Sometimes there'll be a big sale, but people looking for Christmas gifts.
But your volume is up too.
Yeah. That tends to be a good price point, for Christmas things, about $75 to $100.
How about you, Bryan? Are you seeing a little Christmas bump?
Absolutely. We've had a really good December. We're selling a couple of books a day online, and like Lee said, generally in that typical price range. I would say probably at least 2/3 of them are probably close to that price range. We do have some very high-end sales as well, people buying really nice stuff, and some lower-end sales. But Christmas is always a good time. Generally starts about the middle of November, and we're probably going to see the end of it here in the next day or two, because they'll figure out that we can't get the books to them by Christmas. But
right. My mail carrier has been very explicit about saying, please don't promise anything after the 15th.
Right.
All right. Very good, Bryan. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
And,
Love to be
looking
here.
forward to your sojourn to Florida and
Absolutely.
to everybody in person.
And
Absolutely.
Richard
We're
and I
ready.
will look forward to seeing you and coming to visit your booth, and certainly expect you to be in ours.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
You
We're
will
ready.
make sure you check me out. I'll have some things that I haven't bought yet.
Okay.
Always selling, Richard. Always selling. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for the Rare Book Cafe, the Book Lovers Rendezvous. We're so happy that you've been with us, and come back and see us again. We're good podcasts. We're giving away for free on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we're just type us into Google. You'll find us. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Take care.